This podcast is brought to you by the Institute for Building Technology and Safety, IBTS, a national nonprofit organization and trusted partner to public, nonprofit, and private clients. IBTS's work is guided by a board of directors with representatives from the Council of State Governments, the International City-County Management Association, the National Association of Counties, the National Governors Association, and the National League of Cities. Thanks for tuning in. This is On Further Inspection with IBTS. I'm your host, Gabby Geraci, and today we're taking a special deep dive into the life story of IBTS, which was founded by two best friends, Shyam Chowdhury and Ashok Goswami. Visionaries with adventurous spirits, entrepreneurial mindsets, and a deep sense of servant leadership. They saw the need for a nonprofit that could merge the flexibility of the private sector with the accountability and trust required to provide essential services to governments and communities across the nation. We're honored to have Ashok with us today. As the current president of IBTS, Ashok will share his personal journey and insights into the organization's growth, evolution, and the exciting future ahead. But before we begin, I want to take a moment to remember Shyam. Shyam sadly passed away in 2020. But his spirit and vision remain at the heart of IBTS. His dedication, leadership, and passion continue to inspire everything we do. And now, without further ado, here's today's program. Thank you so much for joining us this beautiful day. How are you doing today?
I am doing very well, and good morning to you. Your smile brings smile to the listeners. So I'm smiling because you are.
Thank you, Ashok. Well, I'd like to have you introduce yourself to our listeners. Tell us a little bit about yourself. And after that, you can jump right into how IBTS came to be. Tell us about your friendship with Shyam and how this evolved into IBTS.
All right. That is a long question, but something which is closer to my heart. I am Ashok Goswami. I was born and raised in India, a typical boy in a small town. I had I was very good in college, so I got into a select engineering school after doing my undergraduate in engineering and got into a relatively prestigious engineering school.
Wow.
That school also had a policy to have students from different states from India. And it was the policy of Government of India at that time that people need to understand India because it was relatively recently freed from British rule. And they were trying to create future officers for Government of India. And for that, they thought it will be a good thing that people from all 17 states from India are asked to join into those kind of schools so people will understand India and not only on their state. So Mr. Chaudhary was from a state obviously different from ours and many others. And the people who are from the state, which was required to have 40% of the students were from that state, and the remaining from what we at that time called outsiders. and we expected outsiders to adopt to our ways,
of course,
rather than us adopting to their ways.
Of course.
And that was our way of introducing ourselves and trying to tell them that they have a place in our college, but they are not there yet. So start learning. That's what the college students did at that time.
Wow.
And somehow, somewhere, without even wanting to, he was one of the person whom I was supposed to tell what are the ways and means of our state. And that is how my first interaction with him started.
Wow.
And that
Fantastic.
is how it was not a desire to become a friend. He was obviously culturally different. Just I found out after coming to this country how culturally different it is. Same people, same goodness, just wrapped in a different wrapper. So that is how I got to know my friend, and he became a good friend from second year onward because we ended up in the same branch of engineering that was civil engineering.
Wow,
That's where the friendship started.
It's wonderful. And tell us a little bit about that jump to this opportunity of coming to the States.
At the time I was in college, we did not see it as an opportunity. There was no specific desire to come here. It was a happenstance or a coincidence, if I may. I knew very well that if I stayed in India, I will be in a senior position and my life will be fairly comfortable. So there was no reason to think about that, except one of our professors had been to America. He was recently back from there, and he more or less asked us to explore. He said, look, guys, you are young, you are not married, you do not have any significant responsibilities. Why don't you go to United States? And as gullible, or you might say smart people we said, why not? And the United States government made it very easy for us. They had a little, what they might call a center set up in our college. All you had to do was give them your information and off you go. No fees, no charges. We signed it up and forgot all about it. What we signed up for.
Oh my goodness.
So it wasn't some big planning. You plan, you strategize, you approach, and you reach your goal. It started with a happenstance and more or less from naivety rather than a serious thought process.
What a good coincidence, I guess, for the rest of us that are now working for IBTS, that you chose to come. And tell us a little bit about that transition. So you were working, you'd forgotten about the fact that you applied for this possibility, and then how did it come back?
Came back. I was in a government job, which was called a officer level job. I had joined that position. I got a call from my father. He said, I have received this letter from American Embassy. What is that? And I said, Dad, I do not know. But then I recalled I signed something. And he said, it is some kind of a immigration visa. What led you to apply for that? And I told him the same thing. I just did that. I had no idea what we were doing. But by that time, at least at that time, the image of America was something like a bright light on the high mountain. You looked up to America, not because it was rich, because it, in our opinion, it set the standards of a democracy, a standard of helping other people, and things like that. And also a realization that I don't have any significant obligation. So what difference does it make if I go there? If it doesn't work, I will come back.
Of course. There's no risk involved. It's an adventure.
There was no risk involved. So it wasn't some creative thinker taking risk for its life. It was a happenstance.
Wow, but you had an adventurous spirit. That definitely took courage to get out of your comfort zone that you'd known your whole life.
Well, you can call it that. It was adventurous spirit, which sounds very good, and I gladly accept that. But the reality is, it was a young person of 23 years old, but has no basic responsibility, and say, why not?
Yeah, you were so young. My goodness. Okay. And so the idea was planted that, okay, maybe I'll take this adventure on? And what was the thought process to come here with Sham? Did he have that idea as well?
That was almost a requirement put by our parents. Plus, we were friends. They said, alone, you're not going.
Uh-huh.
So if you're going there, you have somebody. And I said, okay. So we both went, both were on the same way. Neither of our families were exceptionally thrilled that we were doing that.
Oh, of course.
But they accepted that with a promise that if things do not work out, just come back. It's okay. And I took leave of absence from my job. I said, what is the big deal? Just come back.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, really.
And that is what he did. And off we came on the same flight to New York. And I still remember watching from the plane big skyride buildings and say, where are we landing?
That's so exciting.
So that is how both of us on the same flight ended up in New York City.
You're in New York. You decide to try your luck getting employment.
We knew a couple of other college students who were in New York. So we had their phone number, gave them a call. They told us how to take a cab and come to that place. And off we go. So there were 2 guys there. Now there were 4. So we said, all right. And the first thing they told us, look, engineering jobs are not easy to find out. But for you to find a job, don't tell them that you are an engineer. Try to find a job in an office. Tell them you're a high school graduate and that you need a job.
Okay.
I said, okay.
So you have no college experience, quote unquote.
And I said, why will that be considered bad? They said, well, they are going to conclude that you are here for only a short period of time and they do not want to invest in you. They want the right person for right job. You just tell them that you're a high school graduate. And I said, okay, high school graduate, I definitely am. So I'm not lying. I just said I'm a high school graduate. So led me and Sham to go into various places. We were looking for a job and ended up into an employment agency. Both of us went there at the same time. And they gave us some little test to figure it out whether we have a basic educational proficiency or not.
No.
And both of us thought that if we do our test quicker, we will get the job, which we did. And the manager and manager there picked us. I said, you two, come into my office. I have never seen somebody, high school graduate, finish this thing in this period of time. I want to tell me what exactly is going on.
Wow. And you told them?
We told them. And they said, okay, I'll help you actually find the real job. And
that's
I
fantastic.
must say, it is fantastic, not because he wanted to help. I want to emphasize that people sometimes talk about that guardian angel.
Mm-hmm.
I think that person took us both under his wing as a guardian agent, angel for both of us, and helped us get an apartment, helped us change our clothing so that we more amalgamate into American culture.
Wow. Yeah.
And tried to say, okay, I'm going to get you into a job till the engineering job comes in, but I'm going to let them know that you are there temporary. So he placed me into one office and Sham into another office. And so we started in a basic administrative position, but our employers knew that that is what it is. And that is how the life started.
And did you live together during this time in the city?
We lived, the 4 of us were together. We were not in a very good part of New York, which we did not even know that it was not good part. But we got some sense that this is not our imagination of what America was. This is
something more.
This is something more or different. So we actually started developing that this may not be the right place for us.
Mm-hmm.
And
Interesting.
even though our guardian angel, his name is passed away now. His name was Ronald Drum. He helped us get into a very nice apartment. He paid the security or vouched for us or whatever.
Wow.
But we still,
what a person to
guardian angel.
You really,
baby.
Yeah. When you say guardian angel, I mean, he really did go above and beyond. That's beautiful.
Way above and beyond. Not only he did that, he also cautioned us where the dark parts of American culture are, how not to get caught into either drugs or alcohol, what they are, because our culture was very protective. We were in a cocoon, and here we were just let go like a feather in the wind. So he definitely, my hats off to him, my gratitude to him, that how he prevented us from falling into off the cliff.
That's incredible. And what year was it that you first stepped foot here in America?
I came to America in 71.
71.
In February, very cold.
Wow, 70s in New York City. Yeah, I can imagine it wasn't.
We had no idea
wild.
what you can imagine because you were there before. We just landed a few days before and had no idea.
Yeah, that's a culture shock.
Cultural difference and things were. So it was very different. The interaction between males and females was very different from how we were in India. So it just two very different things. It is
very different. When I was an immigrant to this country, I came to Florida, so I felt very natural, very much the same as my Venezuela. So, but yours was completely a black and white situation. So many differences.
Very black and white situation. So, but we were protected because we knew this person. His wife was also kind of took us under her wings. Many weekends we went with them to know what America really is.
Oh, that's
the good or bad. Sweet. So they expedited our awareness of this country.
Yeah.
But in spite of that, both of us thought that this is not the country for us. And we ought to take the opportunity and go back to our job.
Really?
Very honestly, and that is what we thought. And he said, well, if we are going to go back, let's go and see some monuments in Washington, D.C. area.
No. Oh, my gosh. I know where this is going. Oh, you have to continue. So you take a trip to Washington, D.C. before supposedly you're going to go back home.
Right. And he said, we will see White House, we will see Congress, we will see this and that. And that is, and another classmate of ours who was in California, he joined us. And so we three of us amigos said, let's go see Washington, D.C.
What? That's crazy.
And, it was to our amazement, we did not know Washington, D.C. was in the midst of starting their metro subway system. There were construction going on everywhere. And every place they will say civil engineers, structural engineers needed.
Wow.
It was like even if your neighbor was an engineer, they might hire you, a kind of a situation.
They really needed them, yeah.
At that time. So Shyam went into one office and I went to another office and my friend went to a third office. And by that evening, we had a job offer in engineering field.
Oh my gosh. You can't make this up. What a story.
You cannot make it up because that's what happened. I still remember the first office in Washington, D.C. on Connecticut Avenue and 12th Street where this office was. And Shyam was somewhere else. And I went, my third friend was somewhere else. And we met in the afternoon and said, I got a job. He said, I got a job. I said, okay, at least this is an engineering job. So now what do we do? We went back, hired a little truck, put our things into that thing, and Washington it is. And we asked them, I think we came here in the middle of the week. We said, we'll be joining Monday. They said, that's fine. We went there, picked up whatever little things we had, and got a, a truck rental, which at that time looked us strange that we rented something from New York and returned it here. But whatever it was, we joined a typical engineering job. My first experience started from designing foundations under the buildings for the metro tunnels.
Wow. Which are still there.
They are still there. I don't travel on those trains because I know that I designed them. They may not work, but they're there.
Oh, that's so funny.
I know when the train goes through a Farragut Square, oh my God, I hope it does not fall down because I was the one.
You avoid the news just in case.
No, but kidding aside, I still go into that area and I know where I started my technical career in this building, in this city. And Sham actually was involved, but his assignments were more near the Union Station, metro area or Union Station itself. And I used to always joke with him, I'm never going to take a train from there. Who knows? You designed it.
No way.
No way.
But it's incredible, really, and I'm not surprised because this whole story is so awesome to listen to. But you started your first role that you actually loved in the place that you felt most comfortable here in the U.S., and you were building foundations. That's pretty cool.
I started, and it is near Farragut Square. I know exactly which section of the railroad was given big buildings, heavy loads, and not a simple structure to design necessarily.
Right.
But interesting. I had a very good mentor who taught me the real life experiences, how the foundation systems underground where a building is already standing is required to be designed, and how you span the load across the tunnels. It was interesting.
Of course. And it's a perfect segue for you telling us how the foundations were set for IBTS. So how did you go from working in separate places and doing similar but different work in DC to coming back together and forming IBTS? How did that work?
Well,
how did that work?
Was once again, life is a string of coincidences. It starts with taking something and you start putting it together, and before you know, it becomes a necklace. So it is not something which I would say, okay, I'm going to create a not-for-profit or some IBTS of future. Another friend of mine mentioned to me that, look, if you want to see America, you should take a job where your job requires you to travel. And I said, well, that is interesting. I still had a lingering thing in my mind that I might just go back. It wasn't that I had put my solid roots here. It was nice. It was fun. It was being here, good, satisfying job. But somebody mentioned to me that a new law has been passed. I have just been hired, and why don't you apply for a job there? And I said, what is the benefit of it? He said, well, it's really not, it is more in the manufactured home. I did not know manufactured home from Timbuktu. And I said, well, but it is, it's a nice job. It will allow you the opportunity to travel and learn something new. So I applied for that job, and they hired me, and then known as National Conference of States on Building Codes and Standards.
Mm-hmm.
They were basically a code coordination type of an organization.
Okay.
And I learned that there is a national program. I learned later that this is the only program which deals with the residential housing, which is national in scope and also preemptive of the local codes and standards. So the opportunity was enormous to create a industry which was in its beginning, to have your knowledge or things and try to bring it to a respectable housing.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, look into how the construction is done, not only on piece of paper, but actually see what happens in the real life, what
Mm-hmm.
happens in the factories, how these products get to there. So it was exciting. So I joined that job and actually found that it was very exciting, not because of its technical proficiency alone, but I learned that designing a manufactured home is as complex or more than designing foundations for a metro system. To somebody, it may look like, what the heck are you talking about? Metro systems are so complex and big. And how can a manufactured home be complex? The reason for that one is that those buildings are square. You have a load, you have a foundation, and that is where you go. This
Mm-hmm.
one is a movable product which works on a chassis, and it does not have a typical foundation system to manage. So the engineering is more complex, just like it is for planes or other things, that it is an unusual product. So there was
It is,
some
yeah.
real engineering involved into its chassis system and load transfers. But more importantly, and that I learned, then it also gave me an opportunity to learn the science of quality control, or in other words, predictability. How do you make something come out consistently?
Mm-hmm.
And after about a year or so, I asked Sham, you should also come to this company. It is a nice traveling type of a job. Our basic interest was to see America and on the job. And Sham also joined in, and that is how we started into what is now a very formidable housing component of America called manufactured home. At that time, they were called mobile homes.
Thank you for joining us for this first part of our Founders podcast series. Don't miss the next episode where we'll wrap up this Genesis story with Ashok, exploring how IBTS evolved and where we're heading. You've been listening to On Further Inspection with IBTS. Thanks for tuning in. This podcast is brought to you by the Institute for Building Technology and Safety, IBTS, a national nonprofit organization and trusted partner to public, nonprofit, and private clients. IBTS's work is guided by a board of directors with representatives from the Council of State Governments, the International City-County Management Association, the National Association of Counties, the National Governors Association, and the National League of Cities. Thanks for tuning in. This is On Further Inspection with IBTS.
during that period of time, we were working with the federal government quite a bit, Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Mhm.
The original organization, National Conference of States, were fledgling, and we had multiple months of notice that NCS BCS, as we knew it, is not going to exist.
Gotcha.
So that led for us to say, now what do we do? By that time, we were married, had our children, and we were established here. So we got in the coffee shop and say, what are the real things which we can do? And I mentioned to Sham that when we go and talk to the government people, they mistrust contractor. They like to use the word beltway bandits, that all the consultants are in Washington, D.C., beltway system, and we need to create a very tight contracts and things, and they are going to ask for change orders and this and that, and they are all profit driven and this and that.
That you recognized.
And then we will come to our office, and we were contractor at that time. We will exactly talk about those things. Let's somehow get this contract, then we will get our real money from the change orders. So there was a basic lack of real trust between the service provider, which was the contractors, and the government. Everyone wanted to do one upmanship. We can do that. The government could not live without contractors, but did not trust them. And the contractors did not specifically respect the government. They only wanted to say things which they wanted to hear, get the contract, and then do the change orders. So I told Sham, I said, this is not a very good functioning system.
Right. I mean, it's toxic. Yeah.
It is basically not a very good system. And once again, the college naivety, why don't we start something which combines both of them? And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, why don't we start a not-for-profit organization where the government persons are actually on our advisory board, and we provide the service with a definite mission that we will do well, which I have over a period of time, and at the same time, not make it excessively possessive. It's my thing, how much money I can do. It both can coexist. And then I said, well, if that's the case, how do we get the government people to say, well, we will be on your advisory board? So I went to National Governors Association, National that Council of State Governments, National Association of County, because there's a different level of government.
Of course. And you really thought of players in each area of the government so that it would be comprehensive. You had a board that really understood government from every angle.
Right. That part I could figure it out because that was on a piece of paper. The part which probably helped the most, I actually thought I can pull it off.
You had it. You knew, you could feel it.
No, I don't think it was once again the similar level of naivety. I'll go and tell them that it will work. So I said, So I actually met some people and told them about what I think is possible. And the first three who signed up were National Governors Association, Council of State Government, and National Association of Counties. They say, well, I told them, look, we will make sure that your prestige is never put into doubt. We will have you on our board. Plus, I will have your staff member as a liaison. So we will have you know what we are doing. It's not something you have to see the paper. And they said, well, and it will not cost you because we will cover your costs. So it was simple. It was not a grand scheme, something which was so magnificently thought out and planned and things
But in
like
its
that.
it's beautiful in its simplicity. It didn't need to be complicated because the problem, I think the most difficult part was recognizing the issue, this, trust and respect issue, and finding a solution. After that, the solution seems very,
They kind of start
easy to put
falling in
together.
place.
Yeah.
But I also am from India. Eastern people are goofy, and I also believe that human greed is a very strong drug, and people can get affected by that. And I thought that why don't we create permanent guardrails? If we do not own it, our mind will be more into function rather than on accumulation. So the thought of not for profit was also personal protection against our own potential greed.
It's beautiful. I love it.
It is true. I believe that if you do not create, whether your parents are your guardrail, your teachers are your guardrail, your faith is your guardrail, or your thinking is your guardrail, humans have a significant propensity to deviate. And being an engineer, I said, well, that has an easy solution. You create boundaries. And you can create boundaries which you cannot break. So you're
doing it for yourself as well as everyone involved in the company.
And you, even if there may be a desire to go off, you will not. Just like if you are, there may be drugs, but if you know that you are going to not do it, you have prepared yourself that that human frailties do not take over, then you are protecting against yourself.
Yeah.
So the not-for-profit had that goal also.
And you're also showing the government that, you're putting your money where your mouth is. You're really serving the government. You're at their, at their disposal, ready to serve, not thinking about profit. You're focused.
Not thinking about profit, but at the same time, I wasn't thinking about some kind of a sacrifices or being a saint. I am basically an engineer and a businessman. I rationalized within myself that a very good living can be created without becoming greedy, not because it is a good thing, because I honestly believe that it is self-destructive. So fundamentally, you can call me...
It's perfect balance. You're balancing everything so that nobody loses here.
You can call me very selfish. So I was really, really looking myself against myself. So even I do not damage myself. So we
all know what our weakness is, and that's one weakness that everybody has. So, you're going to have to assume that it's something that anybody could fall into.
So being an engineer, you think of a problem and say the solution should be permanent, should be reliable, should be dependable, and creating an organization which I do not own is the best way not to own something. You just don't. Yeah. You create an institution.
Yeah.
So it's simple, but it wasn't some lofty, great idea or saintly ideas. It was knowing oneself.
Super smart. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And really innovative too. I think that's something that should be mentioned here, because that wasn't, every corner had an IBTS sort of structure. This was a unique, innovative formula to develop a nonprofit that was going to serve the government in a way that they could be trusted. IBTS could be trusted by the government and trusted by contractors and everybody, kind of that liaison, right? And serve as that bridge.
So they are not only told, they are part of our board, they are part of our decision making. And my goal was, just like I grew up in India, I had parents to guide me, other people to guide me. Right. These are people who are going to make sure that neither Shyam nor I or the organization goes astray. So it was a downright very selfish approach.
And tell us a little bit about the work that IBTS started off doing. So on a regular day of work, IBTS, what services were you providing?
Well, we started with the manufactured home program, which on surface look like, okay, they must be inspecting mobile homes and things like that. That's the outcome. It's like a story before the meals come before you. There are a lot of things which happen. There's a cook, there is a thing. So what we started looking into the whole life cycle of manufactured home, where the design start, where the interaction between the states start. How can one state trust the product which is coming from another state? They are putting their residences at risk without even knowing. It's like making a building and having no building inspector. But to create that infrastructure, that is where Shyam and I added a lot of value. To create it reliable. I honestly feel that anything which is good in life or reliable in life, it has a very simple test. If you don't think about it, then it's working. If you have to think about it a number of times, then you're worried that it may or may not.
Yeah.
And because of that, I had only one mission: how the potential buyer does not have to think about the home. They only think about how much money they can get, how much they can afford, but not whether or not it's going to fall on me and burn me or something of that nature. And to create that sense of reliability and trust is the whole, I think it is a very important part of any businesses. Nobody wants to be told what to do right, but people want to sell their product. The reliability of product makes people sometimes spend more money because they know that they can trust the product. And I had, with the active participation of Shyam, that I'm going to make people believe I don't have to worry about, am I buying a junk or what can I afford? And I think that the biggest one achievement is to take this product to that level, where people do not have to worry about its safety. They only have to worry about economics and their life, not about whether or not we are also taking a risk.
And that reminds me so much of the community work that we're doing now. You know, it's allowing people to live their lives. For example, some of the resilience work that we're doing across the country and in Puerto Rico and in the islands, in the Caribbean, you take the community and you take that fear, right, away from them, and they can actually concentrate on working hard, providing for their families, what they should be, focused on, rather than that fear of, is my house going to survive through this? Is my community going to be ready when another storm hits? No, the idea is that you get through it pretty much unscathed and you rest in that. You have that fearless, right, attitude to life. That really goes to show, at least in the work that we're doing now, that there's connection from the core of what you started with Shyam to now, perfect line. And it makes complete sense to how we've expanded.
That is how it expanded. So we thought when we were here, our office was in Herndon. Mm-hmm. I got to know Herndon was a small little village at that time and started expanding. Mm-hmm. So there were some contractors I knew. Every time they will come and they say, we go to the building code department, it takes so much time. It takes so much time. It is really delaying our business. Then they say they will come and inspect and they do not come and we cannot pour, our concrete goes bad and this and that. I said, okay, now there is a problem for an engineer to solve. So we went to the local Herndon building code department and he said, look, and this is what we can do. We have only 4 people and this and that. And if we go for budgets in government, it takes 6 months to get a position approved. By that time, that project is already done. I said, very simple answer. My phone number.
Call
and
me
we
up.
are qualified people. And they looked at us, well, what do you mean? So we started this third party system, that why don't we show you that what you could do is very much doable. You just approve us to work on your behalf, and we will charge and work within the same fee structure which you have. Plus, you can keep the administrative fee out of it. That becomes our problem, not your budget problem. And I saw some excitement. So we started providing services to the town of Herndon.
Wow, you brought them relief. Yeah.
And they thought it was very good. And I did not know, but he knew the city of Fairfax people. So he told them, look, you are having a problem. I have a company in my town that will do it.
Everybody's starting to know your number at that point.
Right. Which I said, now whom do I give it? Because I hate working. So I gave it to Shyam. You take all these calls. But that's besides the point. But that is how it actually started there. And then City of Falls Church. Then we got approved by the Fairfax County to provide building code inspectors and things like that. And then to District of Columbia. That is how that word of mouth started. Yeah. And we helped prepare a third-party mechanism for DC government and these people, that how they can actually use that mechanism to deal with the undulations of their business.
Yeah. Wow.
And at the same time, this the IBTS started in 2002 as in its current in an office form. In 2007, there was Katrina, which hit Louisiana. And all of a sudden, they found out they did not have enough building code inspectors and people like that. And they did not have the mechanisms to deal with those destruction. And somebody had heard that there are people who do things like that. So we got called into state of Louisiana to help 13 parishes set up their building code departments and things like that, and get the construction back in order. Simply because the various businesses were getting ready to leave. They could not get their own insurance because they could not get their buildings inspected or certified. Nobody wants inspections, but they want reliability, their own protection. So they said, well, unless you have that, we cannot build it here. We are going to spend $100 million and we cannot get insurance because you do not have a building code department. We cannot live there. So nobody invites building code people. They invite people who can tell somebody it's reliable, you can invest in it. So I feel that building code inspections are actually an integral part of business, not because we inspect and find faults, because we create a reliability and trust. That's the outcome, not the inspection. The inspection is just a mean. So our name became pretty known into Louisiana. And then we heard that there is a new city there called City of Central. And they do not want government. They want some private people to run that. So I said, well, even though we are not politicians or city types, but city, like any other organism, has steps. So I told Shyam, we know how one home works. We know how 10 home works. In city, it seems to have 5,000 of them. It's a magnitude, not a new problem. You connect things.
It's just scaling it,
and handling it. So it's actually an engineering solution, not a city management solution. So we told them that we can do it. And what we told them, because we are not for profit, we will tell them that if at the end of the year, you can look our books, if our profit or delta is more than 7%, we will refund the money. They had never heard contractor telling them that if your cost is less, we will give your money back. And the very first year, we gave them money back. The second year, we gave them money back. And the third year, they said, we don't want our money back. We want you to do more services with that because that is what it is.
Wow. That's awesome. Wow. And we're still there. Look at us.
We are still there.
And that honesty will always pay, right? It will always keep you employed if people can find you trustworthy and reliable.
I believe so. We have government right on our board. So how can we be that separate from them?
Of course.
I have learned a lot by having actual government people on the board. They have a very distinct responsibility and sometimes not all the means and proficiency. So that is where the idea came in. Why don't we combine like a Arnold Palmer, government credibility and private sector flexibility? If you add those things together, it creates a different formula. So it may look like creative to you guys, but to us, it looked like a simple thing. That is what needs to be done.
You found really a solution that is applicable and not just in IBTS, but I think that people will find that they can apply it to any venture. I wanted to touch upon the services that we now provide because we've grown a lot since 2007 even. We've branched out to so many different service lines. What do you see as the future? What goals do you see for IBTS or continuing to provide certain services, expanding?
My belief is whether it is business, product, family, or whatever, everybody is looking for consistent and reliability. So it does, to me, there is a limitless opportunity. It is only our own limitations and time and energies which make us do that. Every line of business we have went in has just like every necklace has a string. You can change the diamonds or whatever you want to change, but there is something which is holding up. And something that holding up is think of people you are serving. Think of yourself also. Don't be greedy. It will all work out. And resiliency is another thing. The weather is changing. Life is becoming complicated. So we come up and say, what can be done now to reduce the damage? We cannot eliminate the damage.
Right.
But we can create protections, just like having a 501c3 is a protection against greed. Our inspections and things are protection against sloppy work and creating a danger. So everything you kind of look at it, what can you eliminate or reduce? If people do not have to worry about those things, you have arrived. If you are worrying about it every day, that means a lot more work needs to be done.
Yeah.
I do not believe that there is a limit to where we can go because people do worry about a lot of things. And we are in the business of eliminating worries.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Ashok. What a pleasure it's been to talk to you today, to hear this wonderful story. I'm taking so much away from this. And I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to talk with you today. Thank you for sharing.
Hearing from you, I feel fulfilled that it is actually a wonderful story. To me, it looks like it's just a thing. But if it is a wonderful story, I'm very glad.
It is. Thank you so much.
And with that, we've concluded our two-part Founders podcast. It has been an incredible journey of adventure, friendship, and innovation. A heartfelt thank you to Ashok for sharing his enthusiasm and his time. We're deeply grateful for the dedication, the determination, and the vision that you and Shyam brought to building IBTS. You've been listening to On Further Inspection with IBTS. Thanks for tuning in.